As Donald Trump continues to rail about a rigged election, more Republican voices are speaking up to defend the integrity of their state electoral systems. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker has insisted that it is, quote, easy to vote but hard to cheat in his state. And the Secretary of State in Ohio, John Husted, told CNN that Trump's repeated claims are, quote, irresponsible, joining Democratic officials across the country who've been arguing the same for weeks. Today, during a White House press conference with the Prime Minister of Italy, President Obama offered his own opinion on the matter and made clear his disdain for Trump and his rhetoric on rigging.
If whenever things are going badly for you and you lose, you start blaming somebody else, then you don't have what it takes to be in this job. There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections, in part because they're so decentralized and the numbers of votes involved. There's no evidence that that has happened in the past or that there are instances in which that will happen this time. And so I'd advise Mr. Trump to stop whining and go try to make his case to get votes. And if he got the most votes, then it would be my expectation of Hillary Clinton to offer a gracious concession speech and pledge to work with him in order to make sure that the American people benefit from an effective government. And it would be my job to welcome Mr. Trump, regardless of what he said about me or my differences with him on my opinions, and escort him over to the Capitol, in which there would be a peaceful transfer of power.
Mark, even Donald Trump's running mate, Mike Pence, has struggled to defend the Donald's attempts to delegitimize the outcome of this election. My question for you is whether we're reaching a point where Republicans en masse are going to feel compelled to stand up and say that Trump's rhetoric, his bogus claims about widespread electoral fraud, are just that, bogus.
Keep in mind, Republicans have been talking about election fraud now for several cycles. Donald Trump's not the first to do it. They're worried that he's going to say the election's illegitimate, and they're being responsible and stepping up and saying, if Trump loses, he loses. I don't think this will cause them to break with him en masse. I think this is part of the cumulative thing right now. If he is behind, and he's fallen behind in a way that is spooking some Republicans, they're worried it could hurt other candidates. They're worried that he could be blown out in a way that could remake the electoral map for the next presidential race. Then I think they'll look for excuses to break with him, and this could be one of them. But this on its own, I don't think, unless he keeps it up as his main message, I don't think this will be the breaking point.
Well, I'm going to give Republicans more credit here. It is the case. I'm not giving them credit for the thing I'm about to say. I'm giving them credit for the thing I'm going to say after that. The thing I'm going to not give them credit for is, yeah, they've talked about electoral fraud as a justification for voter ID laws. Right. But they talk about it in a general sense. Well, we have to be careful. There could be fraud, and right-thinking people cite the statistics and say it hasn't happened very much. But they haven't specifically come out and said what Trump has been saying in the last few days, which is it's happening on a widespread basis. There's voter fraud all over the place right now, in the past, and the present, and the future. And the thing I want to give them credit for, Scott Walker, the Secretary of State in Ohio, I think some of them just are like, hey, we run sound elections in my state. I'm responsible for the elections in my state. I'm not going to let Donald Trump trash my ability to run a legitimate, fair electoral process.
Here's what's troubling Republicans. This is part of the thing that Trump's saying now, which are the words of a desperate person who thinks he's going to lose. Right. Trashing the media, trashing other Republicans, blaming them, saying the system's rigged. Right. All of these things would be fine if he were winning.
Well, but he wouldn't be saying them. He wouldn't be saying them if he were winning.
Well, no, you could still attack the press if you were winning.
Yes, but he wouldn't be saying all of them. It wouldn't be Trump against the world if he were 5 points up.
So what they're worried about is the more he sounds desperate, the more people are going to think he's not going to win. Right. The harder it's going to be to enthuse everybody they need to be enthused.
And look, a lot of Republicans have come to the same conclusion that a lot of analysts have come to, which is that Trump is almost certain to lose. And given that they've accepted that on some level, they don't want to get in a situation where Trump has burned the whole place down, because they are going to have to deal with President Hillary Clinton and potentially a Democratic Senate and maybe even a Democratic House. It's not helpful for them to have taken part in or tolerated Trump doing this thing that he's doing now.